So we've got Gregg Ritter. What's the name of the company?
So it's Gregg Ritter Photography.
Okay.
Keeping it simple.
Photographer that we were mentioning on the podcast with Tristan.
Tristan Rahman, yeah.
Yeah, he had lots of good things to say, and he was talking about drone footage. And I've had a photographer on, but not one that does drone footage.
Oh, okay, great.
So
Great. Well, I'm happy to be
wanted to
here.
have you on. Had a bunch of questions. Wanted to get this out there to mainly the real estate agents that are kind of keeping an eye on this. If they have questions that maybe they're afraid to call or ask or anything along those lines, we've got you on here that we can put together some content. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about the company, and then I have a ton of questions.
Okay, great. I'm happy to be here. First of all, thank you very much for
My
having
pleasure.
me. Company's called Gregg Ritter Photography, and I'm a photographer here in Austin. I've lived in Austin pretty much since I graduated high school last century.
Okay.
And
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Belton, Texas. I
Okay.
spent about 6 years in San Francisco. Fun fact, I learned how to cook in San Francisco.
There you
And
go.
I spent a really large part of my professional career teaching cuisine, teaching people how to cook.
No kidding.
So I worked for Le Cordon Bleu, I worked for Escoffier, and I've got a big basis in education, and that's helped out in a lot of regards for just everything that I've done since then.
Sure.
Training, education is all very important.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, the business is relatively new. I've been a real estate agent for about 4 years now. Spent the last couple of years focusing on apartment locating, which is where I met Tristan.
Mm-hmm.
But starting kind of the middle of this year, I've taken on photography as a more focused area of my business.
Gotcha. So, what kind of sparked the whole photography part? Was it becoming an agent and not being happy with, photography stuff, or maybe just doing it yourself? How did that all transpire?
So photography's been in the family for as long as I can remember.
Okay.
So again, back in the 70s, we had a actual physical film darkroom in our garage
Oh, wow.
with an enlarger and all the chemicals, and we would make prints in the garage. It was primarily my brother, who's older than me. So my dad was a photographer, my brother was a photographer, and I was just sort of, as you know, a result of their interest in it, I got into it.
Got it.
My very first ever part-time job was volunteering at the Veterans Administration in Temple, Texas,
Okay.
and working in the medical media department. So we would take pictures of wounds and just medical cases, and then develop them. And back then you couldn't just snap a photo and upload it with your iPad. There had to be actual prints in
Sure.
patient files. Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember film. It was a class that I took, and going into the dark room and all the chemicals.
Yep.
And
It's coming back.
is that right?
Yep, it's coming back.
Interesting.
It's hugely popular. It's
Like
really,
records.
Yes, exactly right. I'm waiting for cassettes to come back. That's not. I don't know that that's ever going to happen. But yeah, for sure, film is coming back. It ends up a lot of times being digitized and brought back into the digital world, which is kind of maybe ironic, but people really enjoy it. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway, that's kind of, I knew when I got into the real estate space that I'd want to be able to at least do some of my own
Right.
pictures, do some of my own promotion and that sort of thing. So I kind of picked up a camera again and got back into it.
I gotcha. And so the main reason I wanted to have you on is, we have photography questions, but it was the drone footage, which,
Right.
not super new. We've
Mhm.
been seeing a lot of photographers that have been doing drone footage. I've seen it predominantly in real estate for probably the last like 5 to 7 years,
Mhm.
but now it's becoming a thing where if you don't have it, it's almost as if the listing is, not marketed correctly.
I would agree. I mean, having a drone as part of my services, first of all, it helps my business. It gives me a way to serve people that might need to pull in a couple of different folks to get something done. And the drone photography, I think it's really an easy way to set yourself apart for an agent to set themselves apart from another agent, promote their services. Ultimately, what I do is, yeah, I help sell homes, but a big part of what I do is I help sell the agent sell themselves.
Right. So what do you think it is about drone footage that seems to, you know, here's something I always think about. So, I
Hmm.
look at social media. Obviously, I'm a part of all of that in
Hmm.
regards to creating content. And I sometimes ask myself, even, is some of the content that I'm creating, is it for my like peers in terms of like colleagues, real estate agents, or is it for my clients?
Hmm.
And what's interesting to me about drone footage is, and of course this is probably just an opinion, but what is your opinion about the drone footage regarding? Do you think it's more enticing to other agents that are like, wow, that's so cool, or do you think it really does catch the eye of a potential buyer?
Oh, 100% the buyer,
Hmm.
for sure.
And what do you think it is about that with the drone footage? I mean, you've got a camera that's obviously a high quality camera that's on the drone, but is
Hmm.
it just because I think about this when I
Hmm.
edit the podcasts
Hmm.
and everything, and I know the answers for like some of the things that I recognize, but what do you think it is that someone with no experience with photography or drone work or anything like that, when they see that drone footage, what is it that's so cool?
Well, think about the number of times per day that you scroll
Uh
images,
huh.
right? And how many people have in their hand a cell phone,
Yep.
which is an incredible tool, and I use it a lot. But how many times a day do you see that sort of thing? And it's the exact
Yeah.
same camera, right? So it's going to be something like 20 millimeter field of view.
Yep.
It's going to be 3 feet from your face, or taken at maybe 5, 6 feet off of the ground. That's about it. You see a drone image, and it's a whole new angle,
Yeah. It's
right?
different.
Hmm.
And then obviously with technology, advancing, I think one of the issues that drone footage had initially was just at the end of the day, it's a video,
Hmm.
right? It's not a picture.
Hmm.
And somebody would have to have a reasonable amount of internet access or data
Hmm.
where things have gotten so much better now. Anyone with a cell phone, like you said, can watch a drone video very easily. You're
Hmm.
not like waiting for it to buffer or
Sure.
anything like that. So I think that's definitely helpful. That makes sense. And so when we talk about the drone stuff, some of the questions I have about it is I, I I don't know how to fly a drone.
Hmm.
How difficult is it?
Well, a couple of things.
Yeah.
Number one, I mean, it's not difficult to do well enough, right?
Okay.
If you want to get into it, and I encourage people to do it, right?
Hmm.
I do, and
No desire here.
right.
Just just curious.
But if you want to do it professionally,
Yeah.
it's another level, and
Okay.
you've got to take a test, and it's a pretty rigorous um, test to become a licensed drone pilot, where you can actually charge money.
What is that, like FAA or
It's
something?
an FAA test. It's Part
Hmm.
107, and I fretted over it. I
Really?
mean, and it's not just about drones. It's about learning. You have to learn about um, airports and how
Flight
to
paths
flight
and
paths and what is where it's safe to be and all that kind of stuff. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense.
well, yeah, you definitely don't want to down a commercial airliner, but accidentally.
You don't want to do that, and yeah, and you don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. You don't want to be flying where you don't have any business flying, but you also want to be comfortable knowing that, hey, I'm going to put this up in this neighborhood, and I'm going to do my business, and I'm going to bring it right down. And if somebody has a question, hey, why are you throwing it? Why are you putting up a drone in my neighborhood? You can explain it all to them,
Sure.
that it's safe and it's legal, and you have no interest in doing anything nefarious with your drone. You're just there to do a job.
Right. I've seen these things flown inside through
Hmm.
hallways
Yep.
and
Hmm.
everything like that.
Hmm.
How difficult is that?
So that's a whole nother level, right? So
Okay.
this is a
So more
drone,
difficult.
more difficult, and usually it's done with some kind of visor. It's kind of like a first person field of view,
Uh-huh.
and it's a lot like flying in a video game,
I see.
right? And generally has a little bit different gimbal on the front of these things is the camera with a gimbal, and this one is designed to keep the horizon level,
Okay.
right? And with these first person drone rigs, oftentimes you want it to look like the horizon level is changing and like you're flying through uh, a space.
I see.
Um, but before before we move too much further on the video thing, I want to emphasize that actually photographs from the drone are incredibly effective in doing a listing presentation or uh, putting it out there in a listing.
Yeah, because I guess that makes sense. I didn't
Mhm.
even think about it, but yeah, you can do like aerial photos and stuff like that.
100%. It's one of the things that I want to do on almost every listing uh, that I'm part of. So for one thing, oftentimes you're at a home and there's a decent pitch to the driveway, either up or down,
Hmm.
um, and it's good to get a perspective that's a little bit higher. Now I've got a pretty bulky tripod; it'll get up above my head. It'll be 7 feet in the air, but that's not always sufficient.
Hmm.
So um, I like to put up a drone and get a nice dead-on shot right in the middle of the front elevation and make the house look really square, make it look really nice. And then of course, throwing a drone up above and showing exactly what that lot looks like, right?
Yeah,
If your listing backs up to a green space, well, let's show that off a little bit, right?
sure.
For Tristan, I helped him because he had a listing that was near Mirror Lake.
Okay.
So you can put the drone up 400 feet. You can get a picture of the house, the listing that he's got, plus the lake that's half a mile away, all in one frame.
I like that. Yeah, we've interviewed dozens of real estate agents, and we as real estate professionals know that there's so much that goes into the purchase of a property. But the main thing that everybody says, there's two things that sell homes, and that's photos, it's pictures and price.
Pictures and price. Yep.
Pictures and
Yeah.
price, right? I mean, there's so much more to it, but those are the main things that people are looking at. What do
Hmm.
the photos look like, and how much does it cost? So having good photos, I think, is way more important than a lot of agents know. And you see the jokes on the internet all the time. Like if your agent shows up and is taking pictures with his camera phone, and you're probably going to have a bad time. And yeah, so that's again getting you on here and
Hmm.
really dispelling some of the, you know, maybe not even dispelling, but I think everybody knows that pictures are important, but I don't think they take it as seriously as maybe they should sometimes.
Well, absolutely, 100% agree. The photographs, maybe 2 years ago we could have gotten away with just a really good price and some thoughtful
Yeah,
iPhone photos
right, because the market was different.
because the market was insane back then.
Correct. Yeah.
Um, but not so much anymore. I mean, I think we got to do a little bit better. And even then, if you think about it as an agent, if you were taking some kind of subpar iPhone photos at that time, and then a few years down the road, you're showing your body of work to a future client or
Hmm.
a prospective client, and these are the photos that you present to them. It's not going to show you in your best light.
Yeah. No, I agree. What else do we need to know about the photography stuff? Or better yet, let's stick with the drone for
Sure.
now. Is there
Hmm.
anything else we haven't covered drone wise that you feel like people need to know, whether it be real estate related, and how it can help them, or anything outside of what you're doing photography wise?
Well, I mean, drones today, I'd say for anybody who's interested in getting into it, and even an agent that wants to just kind of look into some possibilities of what's out there, is get one of these smaller drones, get something that's under 250 grams. You don't have to register it. You don't have to, as long as you're not making a business out of it, you can fly it and take pictures and kind of uh, enjoy it for for your own self, just your own enjoyment. Um, and you know, have an opportunity to just show people what's possible, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to, because you're not going to get the listing, and you don't want to put $300-400 into photos beforehand. But you show up there, you take your drone, you put it up in the air, you get a few pictures, and you give a client an idea of what kind of is a possibility for you or for them.
I'm thinking more
Mhm.
along the lines of like the real estate agent that's watching this now, and they're like, what kind of you get probably way more questions than I'm even
hmm
thinking of. So,
hmm
what's a common question that you receive, whether it be photography related or just mainly drone related, from
hmm
other agents who are considering hiring you and, you know, wanting your services? I mean, is there a common question or even like objection?
Honestly, it's price,
It's
right?
just price.
They want to know how much is it going to cost, and
Mm-hmm.
do I offer it, right?
Right.
So one of the things that you get with me is that I do a number of things all on my own, right?
Mm-hmm.
I even do my own editing. It's popular right now to do a bunch of photography and send the editing off, either overseas or just to somebody, Fiverr or something like that, that will do the editing as
Sure.
well. For me, I want to have control of all of that, and so I keep it in house. I do it myself.
Okay.
Um, but in terms of price, normally I'll work with agents on price.
I gotcha.
If something seems like it's out of whack and I've got time, just let's talk about it.
So is it safe to say, as a real estate agent, I mean, you don't necessarily ever get phone calls from agents that are asking questions about why they should be doing some of the things that you're doing? All agents, you'd say across the board, kind of, they just
Yeah,
know, like, this is what we should
yeah.
be doing if it's in the budget.
If it's in the budget, I think everybody knows right now as much as you can possibly do because there's it's tougher to get listings right now.
Yeah.
It just really is.
So let's speak to sellers. I mean,
Mhm.
right now we know that sellers, days on market, I think I had an agent on here last week that said average days on market something like 62 or 63
Mhm.
days, which is,
Mhm.
almost almost 10 times what it was 2 years ago.
Sure. Mhm.
So if I'm a seller and I'm sitting with multiple agents that are talking about listing my property,
Mhm.
and one of them is, talking about the additional cost that's associated with doing some of the things that you're talking about, or even maybe as an agent, I'm just willing to take on the cost
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
Um, we covered it a little bit, but is there anything that we didn't cover that you would say to a potential seller on the importance and just the likelihood that they're going to get more eyeballs by really focusing on photos more than just kind of saying like who's going to be the least expensive in selling my house?
Right. Well, I think you put it out there succinctly. 62 days on market. I mean, it's time to get something behind the listing that's gonna grab some eyeballs, right?
Right.
Um, and and I think as far as what you would tell a seller is just let them know that there needs to be some kind of point of differentiation. Um, and at this point, having different angles, having other images associated with your listing is going to grab some attention.
Yeah.
Another thing that I offer is 360 tours, which is this little camera up here.
Yeah.
That thing,
Tell us about it.
so it does a couple of things. Number one is it does offer 360-degree tours, right?
Hmm.
I use a program through Zillow, and it works great. Um, Also, while it's doing it, it can take measurements of the home and
Oh wow,
offer a floor plan. So
that's really cool.
a 2D digital floor plan that's really concise, really clear, and will actually, I mean, I think it'll help weed out some issues that, maybe a client just absolutely does not want their office space to be, right up front as you walk in, right? Sometimes you see
You
office
wish that
space.
would weed it out, but then when they see that, they're gonna go, well, let's just look at
Yeah, well,
it.
at least they know going in.
Right.
Okay, all right. There's the kid's bedroom is gonna uh, be on the
Yeah.
street side of the building. Maybe that's not going to be okay with them. Maybe they can eliminate that right away.
Gotcha. I
Mhm.
didn't know much about the whole 360 thing. That's super
Mhm.
interesting. How
Mhm.
far away do you think we are to where people are just going to put on VR goggles and tour homes
I
virtually?
mean, you can basically do that right
Right?
now. I
Yeah,
mean,
kind
you
of.
can have a client in San Francisco that can tour, you know, as many listings as has these 360 tours, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of wild. I mean, and then going back to the joke that I made, but it's so true. I mean, I hear these stories from agents where someone will say, "Oh, I want a 3,000 square foot home. It can't be one square foot smaller." And then
Hmm.
they're like, "What about this one?" It's like it's 2,500 square feet. You told
Hmm.
me. They're like, "Well, let's just go see it."
Sure.
And then they don't like it, right?
Right.
So
Hmm.
I guess the point I'm trying to bring up is a lot of what we talk about on here that comes up is artificial intelligence and the fear of it, like taking people's jobs and
Mhm.
everything along those lines. And I think that the uh, the average human, even though they see it virtually, it's just not enough, right? They've got to go
Mhm.
and see it in real life.
Very much agree. Yeah, that people are going to want to go you know, put their feet on the property,
Yeah,
but this is going to
this
help
is going to entice them for sure.
for sure. Now, another thing that I do with the photography angle is um, I offer virtual staging as
Okay.
well. So that's kind of a fun piece that that not everybody knows about. But right now, virtual staging is looking really good.
I've seen it, quite a
Mhm,
bit of it. I mean, it's very realistic.
mhm. Uh, Certainly good enough for kind of a scroll through, and if you get if you're me, if you get super nerdy and look at everything at 200%, then maybe maybe you could tell where it
Sure.
wasn't real. But that, kind of 2 3 years ago, virtual staging where the shadows weren't quite right, and it was really presented itself right away as being virtual. That's kind of gone. It looks really good now.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else that
Mhm.
you're doing that we kind of haven't touched on?
Um, the the virtual staging
Yep.
is probably the most kind of um, forward thinking thing that I'm seeing these days, or that people are wanting to know about. And when you said AI, that's what really sparked my interest. There's a lot of stuff out there that helps a property look a little bit better. Now,
Okay.
it can't ever be anything that substantially changes a property, right? I can't remove a giant electrical line outside or something
Yeah.
like that. Um,
When you do the virtual staging,
mhm.
is this something that can only be done when rooms are empty, or are you able to do virtual staging when there's, for example, if there's a property that has a living room, it's got two couches and
Mhm.
a table and it's basically staged, but the
Mhm.
staging is the owners and their things are old, whatever you want
Sure.
to call
Mhm.
it. Can you do the virtual staging in that situation?
You can undo and redo, and the price goes up
Gotcha.
in that
So it's less
scenario.
expensive if it's vacant.
Sure, yeah,
Got it.
and it's about $30 an image to do virtual staging, so it's not free.
Yeah.
It's not even super cheap. But if you want to showcase a living room or something like that, one or two images, that's pretty helpful, and it doesn't have to break the bank.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Um, in addition to the virtual staging, one of the other things that I think you kind of already covered it though. I mean, this is not only done inside, but outside.
Mhm.
There are things that you're able to virtually stage as well,
Oh,
correct?
for sure. I mean, you could definitely do pool furniture and that kind of stuff, but also, green up the grass a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, you don't want to take something that's
Yeah, you don't want it
and
to be misleading.
right, but if something is just like a little brown spot, especially when you throw the drone up and the next door neighbor has got, this beautiful lush green lawn, and
Right.
yours has got maybe a little brown spot here and there, that you can do. That's no problem. Makes the image pop a little bit more. Super easy, and I include that kind of stuff in in my image, in all the images that I
Yeah.
put out there. Yeah.
No, I get it. So, one of the things we talk about on here is we're mainly geared towards real estate, but we have financial advisors. Obviously, you're a photographer. We have lots of different guests on here that I try to somehow tie to either real estate or towards entrepreneurship because real estate agents, whether they know it or not, they're basically self employed business owners, right?
Sure.
And so we always talk a little bit about, as self employed business owners, the number one thing that we need to do is we need to figure out ways to obtain new business.
Hmm.
So, is there anything that you've been doing recently that's worth talking about that has been working, in regards to obtaining new business outside of just telling friends and family or anything
Hmm.
along those lines?
Well, I try to get on podcasts
There you
whenever I
go.
can. Sure.
That's
uh,
one.
and also, I have a lot of friends that have been in the industry, and honestly, I make phone calls. I take people to lunch, and
Okay.
things pop up. You
I like
know,
that.
but also there are ways to look for specific agents that are selling a lot
Mm-hmm.
through the MLS
Yeah.
and focusing on people that have had multiple listings over the course of the year, and just reach out to them um, in as many ways as I possibly can, either by email, phone call, however I can get to them, and just let them know that I'm out there and my services are available.
Do you find that there's an agent that you seem to connect with better than other agents?
Uh, I I tend to connect with the agents that are really there to serve the client.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always connect with rainmakers,
Okay.
but I think everybody has just different people that they.
Totally. Yeah, that's why I always ask because it's interesting. Um, no matter what the business is, I always ask, what's your ideal client? And everybody's hesitant to answer that question.
Mhm,
It's like, look, I'm not saying that you're going to make that your entire business.
mhm.
You're going to work with lots of different people, but I think everybody should know at least if they had a magic wand, who is it that they would really, want to just continue to connect with. So it's, when we talk about your answer was the agents that are looking to serve the client. Um, what does that look like? I mean, can we unpack that a little bit? Because if I'm a
Sure.
real estate agent, I'm thinking like, well, are you telling me there's agents that don't want to
Of
serve their
course, yeah,
clients?
yeah. People who are interested in a long-term relationship,
Gotcha.
people who are interested in meeting needs, and that can be done a lot of different ways. But it seems like the people that I connect with most are the ones who are open to doing that in whatever way is most comfortable for the client.
I gotcha. And so, I guess here's another good question. We've talked about who you kind of like to connect with, but does there seem to be a type of agent, and it might be the same answer, that
Mhm,
seems to really be happy with like what you're doing? I'm sure you've had instances where, you can't please everybody,
mhm,
right? You have people who maybe use you one time and then they kind of go, oh, that's not for me. And then you have other agents that you just seem to be able to wow. Does there seem to be a particular type of agent that's just like, man, I really love what you're doing? Like,
anybody who can really who feels comfortable clearly, you know, um, letting me know, informing me of exactly what they want,
yeah.
those agents are going to be happy.
I like that. That's a great
Mhm,
answer too,
mhm.
because I think as salespeople, we all, I always give the joke of, you ask your wife what she wants for dinner, and she says, "Oh, I'm okay with anything." And then you say, "All right, well, how about McDonald's?" And she goes, "Not
No,
McDonald's."
not McDonald's.
Right? And
Right.
so it's always difficult,
Mhm,
when you've got that client where they're like, "Hey, do your thing," and you're like, "Well, what is it that you're looking for?" And they're like, "Oh, you just do your thing," and then they're not happy with it. So I love that as an answer. I think that that's something that just everyone in general should be better at. It's like if there's something specifically you're looking for,
mhm.
just just say it.
Let me know. Yeah, I mean, and there's some people that want the minimum, right?
Hmm.
Can you get me in and out for $150? Well, let's see what that looks like,
Yeah,
right? Let's talk about what that result is going to be. And sometimes that's all that's really all they want is that kind of put the camera in a corner, get as much stuff into it
yeah,
into the frame as possible, do that in every room and get out. Other people are spent a couple of grand on staging,
yeah,
and they want to have some vignettes, like show me that this little area where we put some pillows and some artwork, and let's get a shot of that. Maybe it doesn't end up on the MLS, but maybe it ends up on their socials,
yeah.
right? Hmm.
Do you I know this is a loaded question, but can you give me a broad stroke range of, down to the lowest cost that you've ever seen somebody that you've moved forward with up
Hmm.
to the highest?
Yeah, sure. I would say that kind of lowest is about that $150 range,
Yeah.
and oftentimes, you know, I'm trying to build a business. I'm trying to over deliver. So oftentimes, if somebody's not interested in drone photography, I'll throw it up there, and I will take some images and put a couple in there because it's gonna help sell the listing, and long term, I think that client is gonna come back and look to work with me again. So 150, maybe high end of the range is around $600,
Yeah.
and you can get a lot for that. And it's really my goal to uh, to for my clients to say to me, I felt like I got a lot.
Yeah, value,
I got
value.
I got value. Right.
So here's a question that maybe you don't know the answer to because you haven't thought about it, but I got to ask. So do you think, as a photographer and as a real estate agent, so you're kind of qualified really to give this answer, is there like a sweet spot in regards to the number of photos that a listing should have?
A listing, no, not one that you can just not a number that you can just put out there cleanly, but I'd say one per space.
One per space.
Right. That is kind of a minimum.
Because I've seen instances where, gosh, there's like 40, 50 photos.
Sure.
Right? And then I wonder, like, can you have too many photos?
Okay, I think I'm understanding your question
Yeah.
a little bit better. Is there a point at which, like, you don't want to put up 300 photos on the MLS, right?
I don't think so, right?
I think you're right. But I think that one per space,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you start looking at bigger spaces, you add another, and then you add maybe a third.
Okay.
And then you just have to kind of do the math from there.
Yeah,
And
the size of the home is obviously going to be the
big time, right?
the variable.
Place in Dripping Springs with 4,000 square feet, you're going to have more photos.
Sure.
Right? Bungalow in Hyde Park, and it's literally, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and a living space and a kitchen. We want to make that look really good because, it's going to sell for a pretty penny, but it's just not going to be as many images.
But it is safe to say you can have too many photos.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And you can definitely not have enough photos.
Yeah, and there's going to be some fatigue in just scrolling through 50
Right.
images.
Agreed.
So getting those really hero shots, those big, impactful images right away. And again, that's why drones are important.
Yeah, I see that. When we talk about your services, is there a specific area that you cover, or better yet, an area you don't cover?
In terms of physical geographical area,
Yep.
I'm kind of open to anything in the Austin area. So from Georgetown to kind of Kyle is
Okay.
on 35 in that corridor.
Yeah, that's a big
You
coverage
kinda
map.
You got to make yourself available, and you know, if somebody has something outside of that, then I can add some money in there for travel time, and I want to make it work for people.
I like that. So what else do we need to know? I mean, we've covered the drone stuff. We've covered photos, 360 imaging. Too many photos, not enough photos. Anything else? Yeah.
One more thing that I really pride myself on that I'd like to bring up.
Please.
First of all, I am really conscientious about being in a person's space, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to have booties on when I come in. I want to make sure that I leave the place clean. If it's a shoes off house, we'll do shoes off. I'm going to be really respectful of the space. But the one thing I really wanted to get across today is I use a method that's a mixture of flash and ambient photography,
Okay.
oddly called flambient.
Yep.
But what it does is it produces an image that's more true to color. Okay. So there's a lot of photographers out there that do HDR, and you can do a really good job, but the color's not always right. Now, getting color correct is difficult. Okay, it's not an easy thing, and a lot of times images can be impactful without this method. But I go this extra step because I think it gets as close to the correct color as possible. I mean, you don't want someone to look at your paint in your dining room and think, well, why is it purple when it's actually light blue?
Right.
And using the method that I use helps to get those images correct. Basically, I overpower the room with flash, which is a known light color.
Sure.
And then I use an ambient picture just of the way the room looks naturally for shadows and that sort of thing.
Okay. And are there any other things that, because I would envision a normal, and by normal I mean a real estate agent that doesn't do photography. Is there any other information like that that we can get out to, other agents that are, because what I envision right now is you've got a few people that are watching this. You've got agents that are newer, and the idea of spending a couple $100s on photography just sounds insane to them,
Mhm.
right? They're like, there's no way I can do this. You probably have others that are maybe a year or two in,
Mhm.
and they're like, yeah, I did photos for this other property, but it didn't seem to make a difference. The house sold quickly. I feel like, I need to be sold more maybe on
Mhm.
and then you have other agents that are totally, you know, in, they're bought in, they do high end photography on every one of their listings,
Mhm.
but they have someone else that they're working with that might not be as advanced as some of the things that you're doing because let's face it, we don't know what we don't know,
Sure. Mhm.
right? So trying to, I think we've definitely covered for the new agent the importance of photography.
Mhm.
I think we've dispelled any myth that it's a waste. For the middle of the road photographer, real estate agent that's used photography here and there that maybe just comes in and does the $150 job.
Mhm.
We've talked a little bit about, how that might work,
Mhm.
but with 63 average days on the market, like this could really increase your chances of selling.
Mhm.
How do what you just touched on that I loved was some of the things that you're doing with the lighting and the flash that differentiates yourself from other photographers, that agents that see 100% value in high-end photography. Are there any other things like that that if I'm an agent and I do, what I think is the best photography that I can pay for,
Mhm.
what would you say to me? Like, is your photographer doing
Flam
flash with flambient?
Mhm. Mhm.
Are there other things like that that I might not know about as an agent?
Sure. Do they offer single point perspective, which
Okay.
is another big one? So single point perspective, excuse me. Single point perspective is taking some photographs dead on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when you look at architectural images, high end architectural images, magazine shots, you know, dwell magazines, those kinds of things, high end architectural images, these are almost always done from a single point perspective, dead on, because you want things to be straight, with
Right.
right angles. It's very pleasing. A lot of what you see on MLS listings is what I described earlier. Park your camera in a corner,
Yeah.
you open the image up as wide as possible, and you just see the whole room, and it looks it it
Heck, even I have the equipment to do that.
well, and we all do, right? I mean, this
Yeah.
thing is actually the
Yeah.
cell phone is actually a pretty powerful tool, but it takes, you have to shoot in RAW, you have to be able to
Yeah.
color correct, you have to be able to do a lot in post. I mean, if you think about it, the camera sensor that's in here versus the camera sensor that's in here, this is much larger, right? But the one that's in this big DSLR or mirrorless camera is even bigger still. The next up from that is a medium format sensor,
Right.
and those are giant. If you know what you're doing with any of them, you can get a really good image. Did you know that the last Apple event that was shot in Cupertino was shot on an iPhone?
Okay. I did not know that.
Now, that being said, they had about $1 trillion worth of, robot stabilizers and fancy lighting equipment and all that kind of stuff to make the image look that good. But with the proper light, flash ambient method, you can really make any space look fantastic.
Well, and that's one thing I've learned is, when we did this whole studio, I mean, those of you that can't see this, I mean, we've got these huge lights and all this going on. It's
Mm-hmm.
lighting was way more important than I thought it was going to be. So when
100%.
you
Yeah.
talked about the flambient
Mm-hmm.
lighting, I get it. It really is pretty crazy. I mean, these lights can be tuned different ways, and it makes a huge difference by turning things and all that kind of
All
stuff.
right, it just makes all the images look great, and think about the way you've got it set up in here. We've got some nice soft shadows that fall off.
Right.
Everything looks very pleasing. If we cranked them up and we took these diffusers off, then we'd get harsh shadows and
Right.
very dark dark, angular shadows all over the place, and it wouldn't be as pleasing. So
At the end of the day, it all matters.
it all matters, right? And I think if I could tell people about, give people the clearest, most concise bit of information about photography that I could, it would be it's all about the light
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, and
every
I'm
day.
not even a professional, but just doing what we're doing here, I mean, I learned that very quickly.
Hmm.
I have a question for you more as a real estate agent
Okay.
that is also qualified to talk about photography.
Hmm.
So, one of the things that I've identified about real estate in general, this is a controversial statement,
Okay.
the lender here, you
All
know,
right.
um, I gave the analogy maybe like a couple of weeks ago, said Thanksgiving's coming up and there's going to be people that are going to sit down around the Thanksgiving table and a friend or family member is going to ask, hey, how is work? What are you doing for a living?
Hmm.
And there's going to be a person that's going to say, well, I'm starting my own business.
Hmm.
Um, in this analogy, we'll call it an HVAC company,
Okay.
right? I'm starting an HVAC company. I talked to the bank
Hmm.
and I took out a $30,000 loan. I'm buying a used truck, all the tools I need, all the equipment I need, um, and some of the supplies that I'll need in order to be able to get out there and
Hmm.
even a little bit for advertising.
Sure.
And everyone at the table is going to go, that's fantastic. We wish you the best. You know, cheers to Bob for starting his HVAC company,
Hmm.
right? But if you took that exact same analogy and someone said, yeah, I'm starting my own business. I got a $30,000 loan. Getting some money for advertising. I'm going to need a few things in regards to supplies and everything along those lines. And, I'm going to make X amount of payment to the bank every month for this business loan that I'm taking out. And if you finished the story and someone says, well, what kind of business is it?
Hmm.
And you say, well, I'm going to be a real estate agent.
Hmm.
That's what you would hear.
Yeah. Crickets.
Because the idea of making any sort of initial investment
Hmm.
as a real estate agent, even though we've identified that you're a self-employed business owner, you're running your own business, you need to find clients, you need to produce services, you need to have happy clients, and
Hmm.
then you need to take profitability and reinvest it back into your business.
Hmm.
Real estate is one of the only businesses that does not seem to be the norm.
Hmm.
So, asking you as a real estate agent who is also a photographer, why do you think it is so crazy, if you will, for a real estate agent to make that investment on a listing on their own
Hmm.
when you're telling me like on the higher end we're talking about maybe even $700,
Hmm.
when in the grand scheme of things a $600 to $700 investment in your business is pennies on the dollar?
Yeah.
What do you think the hang up is?
Man, that's a tough one. I don't know why that people aren't more willing to put that money into their business, because ultimately investing in something like that, investing in a CRM, wherever you put your money, as long as you can see a path to ROI,
Sure. But
we
we
should be
see
doing
the
it.
photos, right?
Hmm.
So I don't think I'm off base. And please correct
Hmm.
me if I am. But like, I would say if I saw 10 listings
Hmm.
that at least half of them don't have drone shots,
Hmm.
right? And of the other half that did photography, I'd say 50% of those are done with what I would just consider like that 150, you've got shots done with the professional photographer, but just like one shot, nothing, the lighting's not done or anything like that.
Hmm.
So is it possible that it's because agents are just living back in 2021 where they don't think they need to spend that money?
Well, I would I'd agree with you there. I mean, I think what's happening is that people are, you know, uh, buyers are getting to the point where, okay, well, we need to start thinking about getting into this market at these rates, because I've listened to a little bit of your show. I don't think that rates are going to plummet and prices are
I
going to
would agree with you.
plummet. I think probably now is as good a time, if you can find something where the terms work for you, you can afford the monthly payment. I say get into the market. I think agents are starting to realize, okay, maybe I need to step up my game a little bit in terms of marketing.
Well, and I think what's interesting to me is going back to that whole analogy with the HVAC thing is there isn't an agent in the planet that wouldn't do like top end photography if the seller was willing to pay for it,
Hmm. Oh, for sure.
right?
Hmm.
And so knowing that, it's like I have a tough time sometimes wonder or just thinking like why is it so difficult for people to and again if I guess if you just can't afford it,
Hmm.
there's that.
Sure.
Um, but then again, I would be concerned of anyone who can't afford to pay a couple $100s for their business. Man, those sellers should know that too. Right?
Agreed. Yeah.
But
Hmm.
hey, who am I? So yeah, those are things that I think about when I talk to people like photographers, when I
Hmm.
talk to people like home inspectors.
Hmm.
These services that are associated with the purchase or the sale of a home that we know as real estate professionals make a difference, yet we don't capitalize on them because we're trying, to save a couple. I just don't get it.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense to me either. I think there's a chance that they're going to get stuck with paying for photographs and not selling the home.
Right.
That's a possibility.
Well, okay.
But it doesn't mean they came away with nothing.
But wouldn't that increase your chances of selling the home?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
So,
It's not going to get better because you didn't pay
right.
for photography, right? And then you'll have those photos to show prospective clients in the future. Hey,
That's
this is what I've done in the past.
that's a great point.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
mean, that right there, I think, is a huge key takeaway. We're
Hmm.
going to make a clip out of that. Like,
Hmm.
if you're afraid to put together, or excuse me, hire a professional to do really, high end photos for your listing, at the very least, you can utilize that for a presentation on another listing in terms of here's what we did on another property.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and knowing what was entailed or what was involved in the images that they're presenting, right? Look how accurate these colors are.
Yeah.
Look at these vignettes. Look at the detail that we put into these shots. All of that is going to bring some cachet to their listing presentation.
I just thought of something, and this is literally off the cuff. It just
Right.
hit me. Have you ever thought about connecting with real estate agents and basically being a part of almost the listing presentation, coming in as the photographer?
Oh, 100%. If anybody ever wanted me to do that, I would
Like, don't you
definitely.
think that would be like, that'd be huge? Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, if I'm doing a listing presentation and I bring my photographer and my photographer comes in and says, here's all the things that we're going to do.
Hmm.
As someone selling, I'm like, I'm wowed by that.
Hmm.
I'm literally wowed by that. And then not only am I wowed by it because I'm hiring you as my listing agent because you're going to do all of these things, but you're there to answer the questions. You've already met the seller, so now you don't have to tiptoe around the house as
Sure.
much because you've created somewhat of a relationship.
Mhm.
And then I feel so much more comfortable and confident as the real estate agent even paying you for the photos because you basically just helped me get the listing.
Sure, 100%. And think about this: we could even take that kind of scenario to the next level. And while you're doing your listing presentation, I snap a few pictures, pop the SD card into a reader,
Hmm.
do some quick edits on my iPad, and we've got some images to show them before you're even done with the listing presentation.
There it is. Get them on retainer.
Hey, one more thing that I
Yeah.
definitely want to point out. We talked about differentiation, and
No, we've
I
got
do
time,
think,
man. We're good.
okay, I do think my colors are one of the things that differentiate me. But also, I am a member of ABOR,
Hmm.
and I got super access, right? So
Good point.
sometimes you're in North Austin, your listing's in South Austin. You don't want to be there to open a door, right? You don't have to be with me. I'm there, got my super key access. I can pop the door. I can do all the photos, lock it up and
Should have
leave.
led with that.
Yeah.
We should have led with that. No, that's huge.
Yeah,
That's huge. It's
I think
convenient.
it's very convenient. It means you don't have to be there for the whole time either. Yeah, maybe you want to come at the beginning, you want to drop in while it's going on. I can usually finish most houses in less than 3 hours. I like to spend a little more time.
Hmm.
I watch a lot of real estate photography information videos
Oh, I bet.
on YouTube. There are literally people that kind of speed walk from room to room, right? And the idea is to get in 5 houses in a day and keep the price down, and that's just not where I'm at, right? What what I want to do is go in and spend some time, make the space look as good as possible. All the things. Put the toilet seat down, right?
Right.
And you would, I'm a member of some groups that kind of are critical of real estate photography, and you would be amazed at the number of toilet seat up pictures there are out there.
I'm going to start looking for them now.
They're everywhere. There are literally people that take images from their car through the car window
Oh, wow.
of the front elevation of the house.
These are real estate agents, you think?
I'm assuming that's
Let's
who
hope so.
did
It can't be photographers.
Someone posted it though, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, for sure they're not photographers.
Right.
The bottom line, a photographer
Hopefully
would at least step outside of the car, right? But yeah, there's some of that goes on, and I don't want to be critical of other people's business, because people do all kinds of things for all kinds of reasons.
Of course.
There's all kinds of products out there, and there's photographers and agents for all of those things. What I'm looking for is people who want a really good value, and people who want to do some really good work that can carry on for a long period of time.
You got any crazy photography stories that you can tell us?
I mean, I've gone in and taken some pictures of some pretty rough properties.
Yeah.
And stuff that where there were animals involved, and maybe older clients that were no longer able to care for the house,
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff has got to get sold, right?
Yeah.
You say, and I got to do the best job that I can to make it look as good as I can, and maybe that's fewer images, right?
Yeah.
If you see something in Austin for under $300,000 and it's 3,000 square feet, that there's probably condition is
Sure.
is an issue.
Yeah. Lots of smells, I bet.
There's some of that, yeah. But all those houses need to get sold,
Of course.
and all of those places were someone's home, and obviously with all the technology that's out there these days, they will be somebody's home going forward. Somebody get a great deal on it, clean it up. They'll have a fantastic place to live, and I'm not there to judge. I'm there to just make it look as good as I possibly can. And I am not afraid to go into any level, right? I've done $2 million listings, and I've done, just as cheap as you can imagine.
Yeah. Are the $2 million ones a little more fun for you?
I don't know that they're any more fun. Usually the views, right?
Yeah.
So doing what's called a window pull, where you make the outside where you make the outside super clear so that people get an idea of what it would feel like to be in that room and to see the view. Those views are usually pretty nice.
I like that. Well, believe it or not, we're coming up on an hour.
Oh my goodness.
Time flies when you're having fun, right? Anything else we need to know?
Well, it's easy to reach out to me. Gregg Ritter Photography. That's GreggRitter.
Well, tell the people.
Gregg Ritter Photography. That's GreggRitter Photography. Super easy to find. I've got a website that's easily accessible. I'm the only person with that domain that's out there, so I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. So what we'll do, by the way, is we'll get everything tagged with you in it. So if you do want to connect with Gregg, you can always reach out to him through social media when you see his videos, and then you and I need to reconnect so that I can get you I'll get you the full footage on this with you having all the software and everything. It'll allow you to, have the copyrights and everything along those lines. We'll put it on a USB stick for you.
Oh, that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
everybody reach out to Matt when you need a loan officer. I've been able to hear him do some business while I'm here. Fully approve. Definitely get Matt on your cell phone.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
All right.
We'll
thank
have you on
so
again,
much.
too.
Yeah, I
Take care.
appreciate it. Thanks.